President Trump is about to speak in Fargo, North Dakota. We'll go to the event as soon as it begins. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. It was a drama-packed news day today, courtesy of Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. Kennedy announced his retirement from the Supreme Court this afternoon. That gives the president the chance to appoint his second justice. That could result in a big change to the court's ideological makeup, as well as quite an ideological battle. Kennedy was routinely the swing vote on the most contentious cases before the court. Shannon Bream hosts Fox News at night, of course. She's also our judiciary correspondent and an accomplished attorney, and she joins us tonight with an overview of what this means. Hey, Shannon.
Wow. Hey, Tucker. Well, you know, Justice Kennedy gave us the ultimate head fake this morning. They had gavelled the term done. They said, we'll see you back here on the bench in October, and we didn't get an announcement, so we let our guard down just a little bit. Then suddenly, just before 2 p.m. Eastern, it felt like a shockwave. Kennedy really is letting the president know he's going to step down. He wanted to go talk to the president. Folks at the White House told me it felt like a top-secret mission, getting him in and out without being seen, which obviously would have set all of us into the rumor mill overdrive. Kennedy's letter to the president was very simple, talking about the highest honor it was to serve on the court, calling it a, quote, privilege to seek in each case how best to know, interpret, and defend the Constitution and the laws that must always conform to its mandates and promises. Now, though Kennedy was reliably conservative on a number of issues, he was definitely left of center on issues like abortion and LGBT rights. Well, tonight, the left is in full meltdown mode in some corners, vowing to block any Senate moves to try to fill Kennedy's seat before the midterms. Here is the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer.
Americans should make it clear that they will not tolerate a nominee chosen from President Trump's preordained list, selected by powerful special interests who will reverse the progress we have made over the decades.
Senator and likely 2020 presidential hopeful Kamala Harris says this, quote, we should not vote on confirmation until they voted at the ballot box. The president's list of potential nominees are complete non-starters. They are conservative ideologues instead of mainstream jurists. We cannot and will not accept them to serve on the highest court in the land, which is supposed to stand for equal protection under the law and justice for all. Not really sure how that's going to work since Republicans do control the Senate. By the way, I've got one of the shortlisters joining me tonight at 11 p.m., Senator Mike Lee. I'm going to ask him how he feels about being called a non-starter and a complete conservative ideologue, Tucker. We'll see what he says.
It'll be interesting to see how Democrats plan to stop that. Shannon Bream will be covering this, of course, every day until it happens. Good to see you. So who are the top contenders? Who is on the list that Senator Schumer referred to? Carrie Severino is Chief Counsel and Policy Director at Judicial Crisis Network, and she joins us tonight. Carrie, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here.
So before we get to the list, let me ask you, just as a factual matter, is it possible for Democrats to prevent the president from installing a new Supreme Court justice?
Look, right now the Republicans control the Senate. They have 51 votes. That's all they need to confirm a Supreme Court nominee. And what I predict is we get a nominee who's basically Gorsuch 2.0. Same playbook of find someone who has got great judicial experience, is fair, is balanced, has bipartisan and broad public support. I don't see how they could possibly get the votes to stop a nominee like that. And I think that's excellent, because that's exactly why the American people put President Trump in this position tonight. They wanted someone who would be honoring the Constitution and the laws that way.
So you're confident that with Senator McCain out dealing with his illness, and that the president would get the full support of every Republican in the Senate, and that there would be enough Republicans present for a quorum to get this through?
Obviously, you know, with such a narrow margin, you do have to make sure everyone is there. You can't have anyone out on a trip or out sick. However, you know, again, these are the best of the best. If you look at this list of nominees, and I know we're going to, it is some of the brightest legal minds in the country. So I just think all of them would be such shoo-ins.
Who's on it?
Well, there's people
who are.
Right. Obviously, aside from Mike Lee, everyone else has records on the judiciary. You have people who have served on their state Supreme Courts, people like Joan Larson and David Strauss, who both of them were on state Supreme Courts, now on federal courts. Don Willett, same thing in the Texas Supreme Court. You have people who had experience in district courts as well, like Amul Thapar. And then you have people who've spent years, for example, Brett Kavanaugh in the D.C. Circuit, lots of experience in administrative law and one of the longer records votes of the judges. So these are really some of the stars of the federal and state judiciaries, and I think any one of them would be an amazing replacement for Justice Kennedy.
Brett Kavanaugh's an impressive guy, for sure. Yeah. Carrie, thank you for that overview. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
One of the top Democrats in the House of Representatives, in fact, the man who many thought was going to succeed Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House should Democrats win in the fall, lost his primary last night. He is Congressman Joe Crowley. He was widely expected to be House Speaker next year if Democrats retook the House, as we said. Instead, he's on his way out. He was toppled by a 28-year-old self-identified socialist called Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. During the primary, Ocasio-Cortez attacked Crowley for his race, saying that as a white man, he was not fit to represent the district. She explicitly said the election was, quote, about race. Can you say things like that now? Apparently you can, and win. Charlie Hurt is opinion editor at the Washington Times, and he joins us. Charlie, I didn't grow up in a... Look, there have always been bigots in the country, for sure. Right. But you
Usually
didn't
Democrats.
see people running for office saying, don't vote for the other guy because of his skin color. When did that become allowed? And why did nobody say anything about it?
No, it's absolutely staggering, and you're right. It is something that you would never hear anybody in decent company say. But increasingly, it's been something that that is accepted coming from the left. And ever since the beginning of the whole Tea Party movement, we've been sort of waiting for a similar reckoning to hit the Democratic Party. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And all along, the question has been, how bad would it be? And when you look at some of these candidates that Republicans put up, the Tea Party candidates, they weren't the best candidates. They were a little rough around the edges. But at the end of the day, they were constitutionalists like Mike Lee, maybe annoying, but they loved the country. These people are communists. And that's a real problem. And Democrats are going to have to contend with this. And this is not going to be the last sitting Democrat who is going to get ousted by some socialist who wants free stuff for everybody that comes out of nowhere.
This candidate in Queens ran explicitly against ICE and called for a South Africa-style Truth and Reconciliation Commission to go through the sins of ICE, its human rights abuses. Are you going to see other Democrats run on that platform?
Oh, I think absolutely, and I think that you will even see, and this is the coddling that we saw from the we've seen from the Democratic leadership going on years now. We're going to start seeing actual mainstream Democrats in Congress pushing this lie about ICE. And my goodness, what do you expect when they talk about things when they accuse ICE agents and Border Patrol agents of being like Nazis? I mean, my goodness, what do you expect is going to happen with some of your candidates?
I mean, I'm having, look, I don't want to make, I know that Politico just 2 days ago said that Crowley was a shoo-in, it was an automatic win. I mean, people didn't see this coming, even the so-called experts. So I don't want to pretend that I know where the electorate is on everything. But it doesn't seem to me that if you ran in a general election on abolishing a law enforcement agency that protects our borders, you could win. Could you win on that?
No, and I think that, who knows, New York 14, maybe this sort of candidate can win there, but I can guarantee you anywhere else across the country, you're not going to be able to win on this, and all of this plays right into the hands of Donald Trump. I would argue that Donald Trump got himself reelected this week, and it's because of crazy stuff like this, and the Maxine Waters stuff, and the haranguing people in public. It's all playing into Trump's hands.
It sure seems that way. Speaking of the president, here he is, Fargo, North Dakota. Thank you, Charles. Great to see you.
It's great to see you.